than Dwayne Johnson to begin with? What if in this movie, he's just supremely capable? Would that have been more of a fun movie than just sort of have him be an everyday Joe?
I think if he was supremely capable in relationships, it would have been better. Not so much physicality. Just make him a good husband is all I want.
Would The Rock play a bad husband in a movie? Well, he's always divorced. You know what's interesting? In Dwayne Johnson movies, you never see him being a bad husband because I feel like he's always divorced in these movies.
Was he divorced in Skyscraper?
Wait, no, he's a good husband in that. Crap. But in San Andreas, he's divorced.
I don't know if he was a good husband. It was very tense.
Yeah.
I felt they were not like, oh, this is great. It was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, because he's nervous, and she's like, you're going to do great.
It felt tense. Yeah, that was also a weird one, too, because it was Jennifer Love Hewitt, right? Was the
Neve Campbell.
No, it was Neve Campbell. And I'm used to watching Neve Campbell as like a teenager, because that's when I grew up with her. So watching her now being like married to The Rock, I'm like, this doesn't add up. You're not that old, but it's just me aging myself.
The Party of Five crew, they're all getting older now.
Scott Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's on Films of Vancouver. Nancy Drew. He's in that show now.
Yep.
Crushing it. All right, so how about this? Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will talk more 12 rounds. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And during the break, we were chatting about this, and Phil, you had a great point about expectations for this movie, and I think my expectations were so high because Renny Harlin. Like, I've always been a Harlin fan. So I was like, yes, Renny Harlin's getting his chance back. This dude has done this. So I had really high expectations, which were unfair for this $20 million budget action film. But you didn't really have those.
Yeah, I think the key to movie enjoyment and maybe to happiness in life in general is low expectation. And so, you know what? Going in, as I mentioned earlier, I hadn't seen this movie and wasn't super familiar with Cena's work necessarily. I just knew him from wrestling. And so going in, I would say that my expectations for this were pretty low. And I was pleasantly surprised. Again, some of the things that we've talked about, the action sequences, the set pieces, really, this was a fun popcorn action movie. And so I came away really just, it was a ton of fun.
And that's what it is, right? I mean, you have legit just, you know what's nice? And what I love about this movie is when a car crashes into it, like when that fire truck hits some cars, it looks like it just pulverizes those things. It made me so happy to see in this movie. It just made me so happy to watch as real things were blown up and real cars were driven. And Renny Harlin, he says this. So in Long Kiss Goodnight, Deep Blue Sea, he expects his actors to do a lot of their own stunts. And so I kept watching this movie. I don't know if y'all noticed this, and I'm glad I remembered it. Because I have notes, and it looks like a madman writes these notes, so I just got to glean things from them. I kept noticing Cena grabbing something, then looking at his hand and being like, ouch. But 3-4 times in the behind-the-scenes footage, he's just grabbing on the glass and ripping up his hand. Like, it happened to him about 4 times in this movie. So I don't know if you ever noticed him. He kept cutting his hands because he's always around glass or jumping on cars or on a ferry on top of it. Now he's rigged, but he's still falling on this car. It's pretty neat. Like, I don't know. He put him... This is a movie that only John Cena in his second movie would make. John Cena would not go through all this stuff again, I don't think.
I also love the scene where they're like, we need to stop the trolley. So he drives a car in front of it, a car that has wheels and weighs considerably less than the trolley. And he's like, I'll just slam the brakes on and this will stop it. Which, in fact, it does not. It's a failed attempt. And I love that it didn't work. That was... Yeah.
He gets out at one point and climbs on top of the trolley and starts hammering at it and then gets back into the car and just says, all right, that didn't work.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that too because I just thought, wait, that didn't, it didn't work. That's quite refreshing. I didn't even think about that. That's really refreshing, actually. He just kind of hammered on it. Yeah. No, shouldn't waste my time with that. I'm coming back down.
No. Redirect. What else we got?
Oh, that was
also,
yeah.
The good FBI, well, there's 2 FBI agents here. There's the one guy who's got his Hot Wheels car, which I think that was his choice. I think he came to the set and he was like, I got a bit I'm going to do that's going to show that I'm emotionally connected to this guy with a Hot Wheels car. But as a vintage toy collector, that Hot Wheels car is in immaculate shape. There's no paint wear on it. There's no denting. The wheels are straight.
It's the unbreakable of Hot Wheel cars.
Yeah, and it was the only thing left from a terrible explosion. And I was like, would it hurt just to smash the thing around a little bit, put a little bit of wear on that bad boy? But anyways, the other agent who was kind of more helpful, he had some nice socks. He had some short pants and nice socks that when he took over driving that car, there was an incredible shot of his leg and sock, and it was like, ooh, that is an interesting choice.
What were the socks?
They were just like dress. They weren't dress socks. They were higher than dress socks. But his pants came down when he was sitting down. It came down just below his knee because you could see his shoe, his sock, and then where the sock ended, and there was a leg, and then there was pant cuffs. It was a lot. It was a lot exposed.
I wish I could have been there with you watching this movie because we've been recording this for episodes of this podcast for a couple of years now, maybe more, and I have never heard these observations from you ever with all these before. This is a new side of you on here, man. You're going hard on 12 rounds.
Well, I knew that Phil would be naturally kind of filling the role that I usually do, so I had to find a new bit. I didn't want to just be repeating everything Phil said. We're such on the same page, Mark. I don't want to be agreeing with my buddy all the night. So I was like, I'm going to make some other observations, and these are some of them. So speaking of other observations, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Favorite moment of the film?
Favorite moment of the film. You go first, Phil.
I mean, I think the whole bus scene for me was probably the best scene in the film, where he just sees Molly with the bomb vest on, and he's face to face with the villain whose name all of a sudden I'm forgetting, with Jackson. And for me, that entire scene where he, the snipers are going to take out Jackson, and Danny wants to save his girlfriend, and so he saves both his girlfriend and the villain. That for me was probably my favorite.
Because you're right, there were stakes at that. George Aiken was pushing to murder him, but if he did, they would all blow up. And there was tension in that. Because that's fun screenwriting. The hero has to save the villain, because if not, everyone blows up. Like that's a good way to get some, I don't know, your heart pumping a little bit, right? Get some tension going on there.
Well, it gets you on Team Cena a little bit, right? It shows you that, like, nobody's really for this guy ultimately, and he's the only guy that really gets it. So it gets Cena some stake.
And he's got information that nobody else has, right? And so this is where it's sort of debatable whether how competent he is as a detective or as a police officer. In this circumstance, he's the guy that is kind of playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers, right? The FBI guys they don't really care about the consequences. They're just trying to take out Jackson, but Cena realizes that if that happens, then everybody on that bus is going to die. And so I think it was one of the high points for Cena in the movie.
Because it gave him some agency, right? It gave him something to act with, not just acting like I haven't paid the electricity bill, that kind of mumbling. Like, this gave him something to really sink his teeth into. I bet he loved filming that scene, because that's probably the most acting he does. And I'm not saying like in a bad way, but you're right, Phil. That's probably the most acting he has to do, because there's the kind of on the bus, there's the pressure. No, it's a good scene. I dig that scene. And he gets to yell at Aiken for a while too. And Aiken's like, "Oh, my bad."
That was great when you got to punch Aiken. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Punch that guy.
I felt bad for Aiken.
Well, my question about that scene was, Santiago then, so the other FBI agent, just starts like smack talking his boss basically after Cena punches him in the face. Did you guys notice that? He said something like, "Oh, you got a little something right there," and I was like, what is going on here with these two guys?
So
I totally understand their dynamic.
I don't know if you caught it, Phil, but he said, "You got something right there," but also flipped him the finger.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a rough move to pull on who I presume is his boss.
He's just tired of Aiken. But you know what's interesting? He must know Aiken's situation, though, that Aiken doesn't want another plane blowing up. But he's just become so insufferable that Santiago is tired of it.
Is that the prequel, the Aiken situation?
Oh, yeah. But Aiken, he really gives it. He goes heavy on Santiago. So I was kind of happy when Santiago did the pointing at the lip with flicking him off. That mean, like, also, sometimes when there's somebody who it's kind of the alpha, but then they show weakness, it's on then. So you have Aiken getting hit by a beefy Danny Fisher hand, and Santiago just realizes, hey, this is my time. This is my opening for this. I can do it.
Also, I feel like Aiken pulled the Harry Potter nonsense that really I want to love those movies a lot, but I just can't because for me it's kind of like, well, if Harry knew about this, but don't tell him. And everybody knows what's going on. No one tells Harry. And so Aiken knows all this information, just doesn't tell anybody. Right? He's like, well, Fisher, if you knew what I knew. I'm like, well, just tell him. Like, clearly he's not the bad guy here. Why are you telling him what's going on? Tell him. And then they tell him at the 12th hour, or the 12th round, if you will. And then all of a sudden this information's helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know. That bothers me. Let's be on the same team. I want to be team players. All our cards on the table.
I guess a better... Sure. But I also think if everyone just lays their cards out on the table immediately, and then they gotta just go through with the movie, I don't know. I can see both ways. But yeah, this one was kind of interesting that why... Well, he had no reason to really trust Danny Fisher, though, did he? George Aiken? Because Danny Fisher's just a cop, so he's not too worried about him.
But he had no reason not to trust him.
But I guess in the beginning, too, he went above the CIA or FBI director's head. He's like, I'm not calling him. This is my mission. And then he messed up. So this guy seems to be very rogue, cagey. He doesn't tell people anything. So it's kind of on character that he doesn't give Danny Fisher anything.
That's true.
And as far as we know, Aiken doesn't know about the unpaid electricity bill either. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the plumbing.
If Aiken knew about that, he would have just arrested John Cena. Put him in a slammer. We'll take care of this ourselves.
You know, they built that house to blow it up. I love that scene.
It looked very small. And the seconds before it exploded, I was like, that is a small house. And then it explodes.
It was a cute little blue house, though. They just put that. I love that they just built it to blow it up. And that's also... I was looking at some of the crew in this movie, and we'll get to our favorite moments real quick, but Steve Ritchie, the stunt coordinator, this dude has worked on, he worked on Face Off, Blade, then he did The Patriot, and then he moved up to stunt coordinator, like he did, and then he did, he was on Red Eye, Transporter 2, and then he went on to do The Guardian, Employee of the Month, like Death Sentence, The Brave One. He did The Mist, the stunt coordinator on that, like... This guy has Never Back Down. Hey, that's a fun movie. But yeah, he...
Mark, you let me know when we're doing our Never Back Down podcast.
That's our next one. That's our next one. So I'm in. I'll talk about that movie all day. Great villain. But yeah, this guy went on to do 12 Rounds, but I don't know. I was looking through the crew of this film. That he did the stunt coordinator on The Looper, G.I. Joe Retaliation. This is a guy who's doing huge movies right now. He actually teamed up with John Cena again for Blockers and Game Night. He's in Atlanta right now working. Stuber. He did that. And then I looked at the production designer who has just a ton of skill. And I thought one thing Renny Harlin said in this movie was interesting. So they didn't really have any money to build sets. But since they went to New Orleans in 2009, it wasn't that popular with filming. So they didn't have a lot of crews there. So New Orleans sort of bent over backwards to help them. So they got the main street. They actually shot on the main street in Canal Street? No, that's in New York. But they shot on the main street
I think it is Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
I think Bourbon Street's the one.
Yeah, they shot on the main street there and they were able to get these really good stunt coordinators. And I thought it was kind of smart that Renny Harlin really avoided sets. And you know what else saved Renny Harlin money on this? And I just thought it was pretty cool. Is so on a lot of film sets, you have, there are gigantic, what we call sort of truck cities where, and I don't know if you've ever driven by a film set, a really big one, but there's a bunch of trailers, there's a bunch of trucks, there's a bunch of 18-wheelers. It's unwieldy. And if you got to move it, it's a massive move. So Renny Harlin in this movie knew that they would be moving a lot. They would get 80 setups a day, which is ludicrous, the amount of stuff they shot in this film. They would get 80 some setups a day, but everything was in vans. So everything could move quick. So Renny Harlin didn't have to pay for all the trucks, all the drivers, all the lots that you have to rent, all the electricity that you have to set up. Like if you're doing a base camp, it all needs electricity. So you need to hire people to come out. So what I love once again about this movie is this guy just knew that he had very little money. So he just made all these decisions about getting vans, having 3 people shoot, moving quick to get all the footage they could. The production designer, this guy, Nicholas Lundy, he was huge, but he's an art director. This is one of his first production design movies, but he had done like High Fidelity, 25th Hour. He also worked in the art department on Amistad, Inside Llewyn Davis, The Departed, This guy worked with Spielberg, like Donnie Brasco. Like he was a huge